America's workforce. Its strength is our nation's success. Join Ronnie Spellman on I Build America podcast as we explore innovative solutions and inspiring stories from leaders and workers shaping America. Discover actionable insights to build a motivated workforce.
I build America.
Welcome to the I Build America podcast. We have the XR guru, Doug Smith. You are the Director of Learning Success at your organization.
That's right.
Tell us your organization, what you do, how you do it, and how do you work within the workforce development realm?
Well, you might have noticed that I brought a VR headset. This is a Meta headset, Meta Quest 2. And we are a virtual reality developer for workforce development content.
Okay.
So 20 years ago, we started in the workforce development training education space, really focused on construction skills, engineering, things like that. Folks who were trying to get their licensure for being an engineer, being an architect, being a PMP, something like that in construction. And fast forward 10 years to about 10 years ago, VR came about in its current form. I remember, 20 years ago, I was in high school playing with VR. That was like the old school setup with the computers and all that and doing just fun stuff. I thought it was cool back then, but today it's super phenomenal. Even 10 years ago, the origin with what's called Unity development really changed the game with developing the software. So we started with our own students in the construction space to develop things like steel sculptures and engineering concepts to make those really more easily learnable, right? And so that went really, really well. So we kind of spun off from that group and started XR Guru, which, of course, for listeners who don't know, XR stands for extended reality, which is virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, anything that exists today and will exist in the future that we don't even know about yet.
The technology, as you mentioned, has changed a lot. In the older days, to get that kind of experience, that 3D experience, you'd have to sit in a big room and some projector to try to give that. And when I was little, we used to have to get the 3D glasses to watch Jaws and some of the other movies back in the day. That was our version of XR or VR. But the technology has changed a lot.
Yeah, that's right. That's like early days. You're right. And even in the past 10 years, even in the past 5 years, as you can imagine with this technology, we call it immersive tech. It changes every day almost. So, fast forward to where that fits in with workforce development, we launched XR Guru with the idea of, career centers and workforce development boards who maybe were a little hesitant to get involved in virtual reality deployments because deployments tend to be expensive.
Right.
And so we try to do is democratize that a little bit, where we have partner content creators from across the globe who specialize in safety for OSHA, or I'm looking around this room, it's filled with windows, and we have a bunch of people who could learn how to do glazing on the windows to put in these industrial commercial windows. So the trades, the skilled trades, the CNA, the healthcare professions. So we've teamed up with all these content creators from across the globe. And now, as of about a year ago, we have about 1,200 different lessons that are off the shelf, ready to go lessons, all in the headset. And it's easy enough for a workforce board or a career tech center to say, hey, I'm going to get maybe 3 headsets or 5 headsets and share that around to the school, to the different schools, to the different students. Maybe they're doing a show and tell. Maybe they're doing an outreach to show, the middle schoolers what it's like to do career exploration in a lot of fields. So
I'd love to talk more about the workforce development boards in a moment. But why use VR technology for training? What's unique about VR that makes the experience different in your eyes?
So VR and being an immersive environment, it can replicate a real world environment. And I study the brain science behind it. I go way back with brain science and studying it and the research behind it. And before the studies even came out on the brain science with virtual reality, you just intuitively know, if you pop on a VR headset, you know that your brain is doing something there because it's replicating real life without the physical environment. And so the studies have come out, the research has come out to show, yes, the learning is faster, the recall rates are higher, the time to onboard and get the confidence in a skill is faster without all the expensive equipment. You have a headset, you don't have to have a piece of heavy machinery.
So that might be so we can discuss workforce boards now, because that might be a novel concept for them, is they're looking at some kind of return on investment, much like a lot of companies. So if they're going to spend a lot of money on the technology, how do they achieve their goals in getting people trained well? And it sounds like you're seeing that the results show that you're getting a better, higher quality training out of using your program. But tell us how you convince the workforce boards that it makes sense.
Yeah. So I don't think VR is ever going to replace on-the-job training.
Sure.
Right? I just don't think it ever will, personally. I hate to say that, but
Right.
I just don't think it will. But everything leading up to that point, it can replace or at the very least supplement and help accelerate those programs. So we started out with the career tech centers with career exploration in the high schools and the middle schools. And where we're seeing it more with the workforce boards is taking it from career exploration to the next step. Well, what's the next step? Pre-apprentice, pre-screening, getting people to understand if you're going to be a veterinarian, you're not going to pet puppies all day, right? You're going to be doing some stuff. We're going to get some natural aptitude and assessments based on that, all in the headset. So for workforce boards who aren't familiar with this technology, immersive tech is a very good way and a very cost-effective way to introduce to the younger generation, especially something that they're already familiar with and a medium they're already familiar with, but exposing them to a variety of careers, kind of narrowing down a career they might want to check out or a couple careers they might want to check out, and then getting them onto kind of a pre-certification or aptitude program.
Now that's interesting. So you use the set to introduce them to a career. What does that visually look like in your system? Like, how does that whole process take place? So let's say I want to be a truck driver or one of the other professions that you might target. Maybe you can give us some of the professions, but what does that experience looks like? So one day I'm in a certain role, the next day I'm in a different role, and I'm doing it through the headset. This is cool.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly right. So when I came on a few years back, my background was construction management.
Okay.
So I came with a knowledge of construction, the different trades. Obviously, there's skill gaps, a lot of job opportunities for folks who want to go into
Were you commercial or residential?
Commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, commercial. And with that, all the different trades, everything that's under the construction umbrella. So we decided to start with, what's going to be the most difficult for a training center or a career tech center or a workforce board to get their hands on something physical? And we decided heavy machinery. Yep, you can go rent one, but they're expensive and you need to have somebody to get it and bring it back. So what we did, to answer your question, we built these different pieces of machinery in different environments on a construction site. And we said, okay, we're going to give you skid steer, not a difficult thing to do. Jump in, we're going to train you, we're going to give you some operational functions here, and you're going to jump in and you're going to do some jobs.
Oh, interesting.
And then next time you pop out of that after 30 minutes, maybe you come back the next day, and then the next 30 minutes you're going to jump in.
It's not like they're just watching a video. They're physically getting in and managing the equipment. They're touching it and all through their hand movement.
Yep. So you pop on the headset.
Wonderful.
You get these hand controllers here. So the headsets come with the hand controllers, and then how it all works.
So people listening without the video, you've got a hand controller in your hand. So now that's a game changer. And here's why I mentioned that. I've been working with the group on the workforce development. We visited a workforce development board. And what we were trying to help them understand and figure out, let's say construction, this specifically was the heavy duty construction, that they're very expensive to create, buying the equipment, getting the site. And our proposal and concept was, let's take them from your state. Let's say that they're in Colorado. We would transport them to another state where we have a big setup. The problem is they wouldn't fund it.
Yep.
And I had to explain, we can't build these training facilities all over the country because they're too expensive to build.
Right.
But yours resolves that issue.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So even though the machines are segmented today, the idea tomorrow is, we're always building, always improving, is that you're going to have a construction site where I'm driving the skid steer and at the same time you're driving the backhoe. Okay. And there's a construction manager over here telling us what to do, and we're putting pieces together, right? But you're physically, in a chair, maybe at your office or at your home or wherever.
Right.
And you have the headset on, you have your hand controllers in your hands, and you're manipulating actual objects in that environment as if you were doing the task. So back to that brain science, that's your brain being tricked in a way, in a good way, that, even though you're not physically in a skid steer, you feel like you're in a skid steer. So your brain and your muscle memory feels that, it remembers that.
That is incredible. Absolutely incredible. So what industries, you mentioned some of them, but what industries do you focus on where you have the technology already in place and set up for the training?
Yeah, with the 1,200 different lessons that are off the shelf.
1,200?
Yeah, 1,200 that are off the shelf. They span from construction, manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, robotics, and we've got healthcare, which is big currently in the past.
And what level of healthcare? What kinds of roles in healthcare?
Yeah, great question. So last year we launched a CNA program, and that's been highly successful. We've had so much push to do more than that, so we're expanding on both sides of that. So we have the patient care tech in front of the CNA, so you don't even have to have a certification. Right. You could take our program and get hired as a PCT. Okay. And then you could go and do your CNA and get your skills assessment. You have to get certified through an accredited board, but this gets you to that point. Okay. And then after that's the LPN. So we're getting ready to launch MA and LPN this summer.
And do you have any other unique advanced technology? I know a lot of surgeons are learning by a similar tool. Yeah. Because they don't want people necessarily practicing complicated surgery on humans. So they're learning, they're getting at least some exposure. Yeah. At some point, they need to go to a human and really test it. But are you having some of those advanced options as well?
We do. We're debating, and whether it's us or partner content creators out across the world, where we started even 10 years ago with the early technology that you're seeing here today. It was the Mayo Clinic, it was the Cleveland Clinic. Those were people we were developing early day content for, that they've decided to take their content creation in-house. So it becomes a conversation of licensing at that point, but they do exist. We have created it. So we're determining if we or one of our partner content creators want to create something that's a little more advanced in the healthcare realm.
This is really, really cool. It's a little more advanced than I think I even gave credit for. I know I've looked at your website. Where are you based?
We're based in Columbus, Ohio, and we're a global operations.
You are a global operation. Mm-hmm. You're headquartered here in the U.S. in Columbus, Ohio?
We are, yep.
Okay, but you are working internationally. I didn't know if you were internationally with a U.S. headquarters in Cleveland.
Yeah, we're based in Ohio.
Yep. Born and bred U.S.-based company.
Ohio guy and Ohio company, yep.
Fantastic. And so as you look across the country, where do you have a lot of your operations now, or at least a lot of your clients?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty noticeable with... if you think of the eastern part of the United States, Florida, up to Tennessee, up to Kentucky, through Ohio, over to New York, Maryland, Virginia, Texas, California, Washington.
You are working in California and Texas as well. Yep. Okay. Are you finding certain regions of the country are more accepting of the technology than others?
I do. And honestly, with this technology, I think it's from the top down, meaning the governments themselves on the state level will say, hey, we're going to try this as a state. So Kentucky was one of the biggest. They had the largest VR deployment in the history of the world.
Really?
2,500 headsets across Kentucky. Why not, right? I don't know. It just came out of nowhere, but they had some good leadership there and wanted to deploy in their career tech centers. So we managed that. My team managed that deployment and still are managing that. But I would say, if you look at Texas, if you look at New York, if you look at Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, those are the people who are adopting this technology the fastest, for sure.
That is really fascinating. I know that in Texas, they're doing a lot with driverless vehicles, and so it sounds like they have a real understanding of technology, which maybe couples with what you're describing.
Yeah, I think if you have pretty core, really good core innovative people at that level, they're going to not just see one innovation, they're going to see multiple innovations and start to integrate those.
Now, what states would you like to work in? We're trying to get them teed up for you to give them a call. What states would
Give me my Midwest people. Where are you? Give me my Ohio's and my Indiana's and Illinois', Michigan. Come on over.
So you're in Ohio.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And Ohio hasn't really yet made the move.
We have more than most states, but I like to think of Ohio as one of the top in the country. So we need to get there with VR as well.
Fantastic. So what's next for your technology?
So it's interesting because Meta, the Meta company, they've really doubled down on this technology with the headsets. They're at the Quest 3 at this point, the Quest 3S, which you can get as a consumer at Best Buy or Amazon. We're Meta resellers and partners in that sense. And what I appreciate about Meta is that they are devoting resources through their what's called Reality Labs, which is their virtual reality component, to promote in education and workforce to bridge those gaps. And so companies like ours are hopefully kind of piggybacking on that momentum that Meta is going to be pushing out here in the next year.
And you just reminded me, at some earlier part in my career, I worked at NASA. and we had a lot of wind tunnels. And then we started to see more in the use of pilot training with these systems. So they weren't learning to fly planes in planes. They were learning in these simulators. And a friend of mine has a really big simulator that he paid a few million for. And so are you in that space as well?
We are not.
Training?
Yeah, our company mission was to keep it low cost so that all schools and all training facilities could participate.
But you don't have like a pilot on your headset system because you have the arms, and if you're operating heavy equipment, it seems like it would be an easy
we could. Yeah,
okay.
we could develop it. I always tell folks, if you can dream it up, we can create it, because our developers are top notch. But that just becomes, like you said, the pilots are already doing simulators in these physical simulation devices, so we don't want to compete against that.
Gotcha.
They already exist.
Because and the reason I ask is because it sounds to me like a friend of mine could have saved a few $1 million by having your system in place.
A few companies get together and spend their $1 million on development of their own content, and they could have that forever instead of having to maintain a device like that.
Now, for those listening and not watching the video, you have a sample of the headset. And I know a lot of the older headsets, you put your phone on it, but describe to me what you have as best you can on audio.
Yeah. So the Meta headsets, and there are several brands out there. So Meta is one brand. There's also HTC, which is like a Vive.
And most people that don't know what Meta is, it's Facebook's parent company.
Yeah,
so Facebook.
Yes.
And then they created the parent company and called it Meta.
Yeah. And their virtual reality is the Quest. It used to be the Oculus. They bought the Oculus. Now it's the Quest, Meta Quest. And their kind of brand of virtual reality is called Reality Labs. Okay. And so Meta's Reality Labs are the only part of Meta that's allowed to spend money. Everybody else has to make money because they know VR is the future in the next 5-10 years. I would say the headsets themselves. This is a 2-year-old version, so this is the Quest 2. Those of you at home not watching this, you have a strap on an actual like visor that you put over your eyes, and you strap it on the back of your head. There's 2 lenses on the inside. The difference between this and like early days where you would slide a phone in a headset is those were 2-dimensional.
Right.
You did not have freedom of movement. You did not have spatial awareness. In these headsets, you do. And so you become part of that environment.
So all of your visual is in the unit now. You don't need to attach anything to it.
That's correct.
Really cool.
Yep.
So yeah, that technology is coming a long way.
It has. And now we're kind of seeing a full circle where folks who don't want to get the headsets because maybe they have folks who get motion sickness, which is like 0.1% of the population, but some people do.
Right.
And they want to try it on the phones or on the computers. So you can take the same technology that you develop for VR and then put it and retrofit it to a phone or a computer.
Interesting. So on a set like this, what does a set typically cost for the VR? So just the headset piece.
Yeah, hardware, and we break that out, hardware versus software. So the hardware is the Quest 3 unit is $300.
Okay.
$400 with a ongoing management subscription. And that's out the door. They're yours to keep, right?
Okay.
You get any content that you want from a service provider like us, and you can go out and play games too if you want to.
Gotcha. Do you have a lease option on those or any other?
We do. Yeah, people can. I would say for workforce development boards who are just experimenting with it, I'd say $5,000 to $8,000 gets you a good set and a good amount of runway to play around and see if it's right for you, and then later you can talk about more deployment.
So when you approach these workforce development boards, you're here at a conference on workforce development. What is your pitch to them? What is your you in sales?
Yeah.
You don't get a lot of time to make that pitch to get them interested.
Yeah.
What does that pitch sound like? So if someone in Ohio is listening to you right now or in the Midwest and they want to understand why this makes sense for them, and I know we've covered a lot of this, but what is that elevator pitch on why it's important for their workforce development and for their community to invest in a product like this?
So the first pitch, the first question I always have is, have you played around in VR before? And if they haven't, it's like, step right up, please. You have no idea until you get in there. If they've seen it, if they played around with it, they've gone to a trade show like here, where we are today, maybe they have some idea. So I take that information and I say, okay, well, what are you trying to teach your people, right? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to get them to understand? And a lot of times it breaks down into, well, we want them to understand the different career pathways. We want them to get involved in more career exploration. Great. I'm going to talk to you about this. Or we want to take that to a pre-apprentice level. We're fine with career exploration. We got our people in the pathways. Now we need to take them to the next level. Okay, great. Now I'm going to talk about that. So the pitch kind of varies. It's very much a conversation as opposed to a one way.
That's good. And for whatever you can say, I know that there might be some confidentiality around this, but Kentucky, you said, is a great model. What makes them a great model? How are they using it? And what are you seeing as a result, or what are they seeing as a result of having implemented your system? Because I think it's a great way for others to understand a good case scenario, a good case study.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're 18 months into that project right now, into that program. They deployed it 18 months ago. And at the last 18 months, we were able to analyze and see how much they're using the content, what kind of content they're actually using. And the whole idea 18 months ago was we're going to start people off with career exploration. We're going to get them interested at the career tech centers in finding a pathway. And then once they find the pathway, we're going to train them in that content for the pathway, and then we're going to hook them into the appropriate accreditations or the certifications or whatever it is that they're going. But what we've seen in reality is people are following that methodology just kind of instinctively. But what we're seeing is industry partners from the community coming to the schools who have the VR and saying, "Hey, I saw that you're doing the VR program. Do you have a program that does what I do? Let's call it, construction.
Sure.
Do you have a construction program that you can send me 5 kids by the end of the school year who are going to be graduating by the end of the school year who have an aptitude and a hunger for this construction
That's
program?"
incredible.
And they say, "Yes, we've got just the 5 for you."
That is absolutely amazing. And you think about the concept. So that program is still evolving and developing. I guess it's kind of neat. You're getting good analytics from it, which probably helps these boards to understand the effectiveness of the tool, because so many other programs, they don't necessarily have the analytics. Do you test in the VR system while they're going through the motions, or are you just analyzing the results of what they're doing? So, when someone is operating a piece of equipment, you can tell that they didn't do it properly. Is that your test, or are you actually testing them specifically?
That's a great question. And now you're getting into the deep weeds of technology, which I love, because these are conversations we have every day at the office. So in the Kentucky model, it's very much a pass-fail, because it was supposed to be kind of career exploration and then aptitude and interest. And now this school year coming up, we're launching the actual analytics of what's called event tracking in the headset. So imagine you're sitting in a skid steer in the virtual reality. Okay, now the headset system is going to track your hand and see where it grabs, if it's going to turn on the key first, if it's going to move the lever first, if it's going to buckle the seatbelt first, and it's tracking all that movement and the time it takes to do that step by step by step. And at the end, you get a full report, or the teacher gets a full report saying, okay, this kid has a good aptitude for it because he went step 1, step 2, step 3 in the right order in a good time.
Okay. And here's why I asked, because this is what you need to talk to the workforce development boards. This is Ronnie telling you is not the XR guru. But, I spent a lot of time building programs, both training and human resources and operations. And I worked in construction for a large residential developer. And I see the potential opportunity in this. And that's if I can get real-time assessment of how they're managing versus having them go through this learning, maybe watching a video, and then giving them essentially a paper task where they choose A, B, C, or D. Right. And you can ask them that question, which one would you do first? But being able to see it in real time versus someone that might memorize the steps in their mind and then go and select A for this one and C for this one, it seems like you get a much clearer picture of their ability.
You really can, and you don't have to take chances by wrecking a piece of equipment, in real life. Well, am I going to put the bucket at 35 degrees or 45 degrees, or and that could cause all sorts of issues on a written test, and it could cause all sorts of issues in a real piece of equipment.
Have you done any analysis then on that? I know you've done a lot of analytics, but any analysis on having a paper test and what you might get as a quality measure? I know you mentioned some of the quality measures, but measuring that as a quality versus being in our system and knowing that, and I think you started off with this, but knowing that this person is 90% more likely to execute this this function well versus them studying a book, maybe watching a video and taking a paper test.
Yep.
Yeah.
You nailed it. 90%.
Okay.
90%.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's
90% better.
This is really neat. So how can someone find you?
So xrguru.com, that's where I recommend starting out, just to see if you have no idea what VR is or you have some interest in VR. Check out xrguru.com/marketplace. That'll give you all the 1,200 different lessons that are off the shelf. That's a good starting place.
Okay.
Once you start to think about, I could do this and I could do that, real development costs real money.
Right.
So I suggest if you're just starting out, check out what's available today that you could start with immediately. See if it's something that you might want to do and keep going with.
What is so have you said 1,200 options, right? Mm-hmm. Which one is the number one and number two of the most requested?
Yeah, I'd say up until recently, probably the construction heavy equipment, and that includes like aerial lifts. And then the number two, which is maybe number one now, is the CNA program.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's the analytics behind those two? Are you seeing a huge trend and need in the CNA across the country?
Yes.
And in the construction?
Both.
And if construction is growing, that's really a good thing, because in the U.S., when you look at GDP, a healthy economy is one that has a lot of construction activity. And so if you're seeing that and that's your number one, then it means that the U.S. is continuing to do something well and growing, is my assumption.
I think that's right. That's coming from construction background. I see that too.
Okay.
And it's interesting because you have the governments and the career tech centers in the schools saying they want more construction content, which is great. And I think that's a good sign to industry. And when I go to industry and talk to construction companies and GCs and subs, they want the safety, right?
Okay.
They want the OSHA.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different, but the people training the construction folks want the construction material.
Now, speaking of OSHA, do you have a program for OSHA specifically in your system?
We do. Yep. So if you need OSHA 10, look us up.
I was with an organization and watching them give their OSHA training. They were a manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. They were a building company that manufactured their buildings in a warehouse.
Okay.
And I watched them give their safety training, and they put in, it wasn't that long ago, I think they put in a VHS, by the way. And I watched the people engage with the video. And what I found was really fascinating. So I'd love to get your feedback on this. They watched the video, the VHS video, and I think most of the people in that room were sleeping. And it was a 2 to 3 hour video process.
Yep.
And I thought that is so unfortunate, because that is counter the need to have someone properly trained in safety.
Yeah.
But I suspect they can't really sleep when using your system.
They can't. Nope.
Okay.
They cannot fall asleep in this system.
That is great to hear, by the way, because it's truly the quality of the training and that engagement piece.
Yeah.
Okay.
Safety, I worked for the state workers' comp, and safety was obviously a huge thing, but not only processing claims, but helping folks stay safe before an incident happens. So that's ingrained in my brain.
Nice.
And this, this software that is in the VR is, it's going to hit that for sure.
Now, do you usually come to workforce development training conferences?
I've been to a few. We haven't done that until we started about 6 months ago, because we've been focused on the career tech side of things and the ed tech. But yeah.
Well, I'm excited for your technology and your ability to impact the workforce development space. And from a program perspective at the I Build America podcast, our goal is, one, to create this connection between resources within the workforce development space and introduce people to new and different technology that can, one, help them better do their job, and two, create opportunities for people that are looking for work and an opportunity to refine their skills and to get the training they need to be successful. And it sounds like you're helping so many of the institutions across the country meet those objectives.
We see a need, and we try to help where we can.
Very cool.
Absolutely.
Well, congratulations on your technology. Any remaining thoughts to workforce development professionals, career technical and training professionals, and are people just interested in what you're doing?
Yeah, I'd say, the stereotypes about the younger generations especially are true.
Okay.
I wouldn't be left behind. I'd strongly encourage folks to at least learn about the technologies that are up and coming. AI, we incorporate a lot of AI into this now.
Nice.
Immersive technology. And what might surprise you is adult learners who might be considered old school, and you you might, stereotype them as old school, are just as likely to be interested in learning in VR than the young folks.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So they can cover a full spectrum of generations.
That's right.
And I spend a lot of time talking about Gen Z. Gen Alpha is coming right behind them soon, and Gen Beta is just started this year. But it is interesting that all generation spectrums might have an interest in this, especially if they're motivated to find a career opportunity,
right,
and they know they need to take action,
right,
they're going to do what they need to do to be successful. They just need to get an introduction to it and know that it exists, right?
Yeah, that's step one.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you joining us on the program.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the I Build America podcast, where we're trying to make a difference around the country and exposing people to workforce development opportunities, successes, and insight. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for listening to the I Build America podcast. Please subscribe, share, and comment, and be sure to join us next time for more insights and inspiring conversations on building a powerful American workforce. I Build America, building workforce success one podcast at a time.
I build America.